Welcome to lowKEY College Convos. I'm your host, Dr. Kim McCurdy. I work for PHEAA, the Pennsylvania Higher Education Assistance Agency, and I am one of the PA Forward and Keystone Student Loans account executives. I'm joined today by my colleague, Amanda Snyder. First of all, I want to welcome you to our set. We are a work in progress, but our goal here is to eventually showcase all of the wonderful post-secondary and secondary institutions that are within Pennsylvania. On today's episode, we're going to unlock PHEAA. We're going to talk about all of the knowledge and resources that PHEAA has to support you. So to get started, PHEAA has two loan products, PA Forward and Keystone Student Loans, which are a part of PHEAA. But we're not just a student lender.
That's right, Kim. So besides offering low-cost loans to our PA residents in border states, PHEAA administers the PA state grant and special programs for our Pennsylvania learners. So we also provide a lot of resources, including our team of account executives who can be utilized whether you're a student yourself or advising students through the higher education process. We'll talk about what we can do to help high schools, post-secondary schools, and students and families prepare for paying for higher education. We have services and tools that will help you no matter what state you're in, whether you might be in your education journey or in helping someone along with theirs.
We're really super excited to get this podcast going. And as I said, I'm joined today by my colleague, Amanda Snyder. Welcome, Amanda.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Well, thanks for being here today. So before we get back to what PHEAA and Keystone can do for our listeners, our team of account executives has over 99 years of experience. Can you believe that?
That's crazy.
I know. I think we're kind of a seasoned staff. It's amazing. And just a little bit more about me. I got into financial aid as a student worker in the financial aid office at IUP. And I was a journalism major, public relations, but I was really introverted and shy. I know a lot of people don't think that about me now, but back then I was. And so I just really didn't feel comfortable doing that after college. And so my supervisor said, why don't you apply for entry-level financial aid? And so I did. And I lived in the Pittsburgh area and I moved to Philadelphia. And I worked in a bunch of different financial aid offices. I did a stint in student lending back in the day. And at one point, I actually came here to PHEAA in 2010, and I know we have that in common. And I left in 2020, went to the Pennsylvania Department of Education, and now I'm back as an account executive. And I work with the Keystone Loans and in those border states. So our border states, for me, I work in New Jersey, Delaware, Virginia, and Maryland. Amanda, what about you? I know your journey is a little bit different than mine. So what are the different strengths that you can share that you bring and about what your career looked like?
Yeah, so I've actually been with PHEAA my entire career, so 15 years already. It's a little hard to believe. I worked in our collections call center while I went to school full time, and then I ended up coming back after I graduated. During our time as Fed Loan Servicing, I was a client relationship manager. And then when that contract ended, I moved into marketing the PA Forward and the Keystone Student Loans. Most of my time has been in the call center, so I have a really unique viewpoint on lending, borrowing, and repaying. And that kind of mixed with my own struggles in school make me, really appreciate how our student loans are structured.
Well, thanks for saying that you had challenges in school. Can you share a little bit about how you might have struggled? Because I know a lot of our student listeners might be able to relate.
Yes, so it was a long time ago, so the details are a little bit fuzzy, but I don't really remember having serious conversations with my parents. Not to say that they didn't have those conversations, but I wasn't actively listening. So when I went off to school, I wasn't really focused on classes, and I never connected, how am I going to pay back these student loans if I don't actually get the degree at the end of this? So I ended up getting pulled after my freshman year and started all over at our local community college. But that really kind of made me who I am today. That entire journey gave me the dedication that I have, and it's how I landed at PHEAA. So it worked out.
So you're not a first-gen student, though, right?
No.
So I think it's really interesting. It's an interesting point because I think we really stress in the industry that we need to help first generation college students get through. But it's not just first gen students that are struggling with college today. You know, our attrition rates are really high, attainment rates are really low in some instances. So I think, you know, even if your parents had gone to college and you could still have trouble in that transition. And I think that's the responsibility of being on your own for the first time and time management and all of the things. I think that that's really important to note.
That's huge. Absolutely. The being on your own, that time management, being responsible for yourself for the first time, definitely. Yeah. You were a first gen student, right?
I was. And I think for me, you know, I had a different experience. My parents couldn't really help me as well. Like, they didn't really have those conversations, but I had a mentor who really helped me along the way. You know, she would sit down with me and do my resume with me and, you know, just really help me to get through. And if I had any issues, and I still actually am in touch with her, you know, 30 years later, and even golf with her sometimes. So we've kept in touch. And I just think that having a good mentor, you know, really helps you. Today's first gen students, I think, are a little bit different maybe than, you know, I went to school in the 90s, so a long time ago. But, you know, I think you have generational differences. You know, I'm an X, you're a millennial, you know, other people coming up are Zs, you know, and I think all of our experiences are different. But there's a lot of differences in how we talk about higher education now. So mental health is addressed more, things like collegiate basic needs, like food insecurity, and all of the things that students are missing as they're going to college. It's not just about paying tuition. So I think that, you know, that makes the landscape a little different for first gen students than when I went to school.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's funny, I remember you know, very early on, I'm one of four. I have three older brothers, and my oldest brother just always knew what he wanted to do. He really focused on that throughout his early and late high school. All of his decisions and actions were that future self. And while I had interests, I did not focus and think that those interests were going to turn into my career. And I think that is what made my college journey so much more challenging than it probably needed to be. So it's really important for me to get across to our listeners that, you know, PHEAA has a ton of different resources that we can help students early on. We have a couple different websites, including Education Planner, which is a really good tool for students who, as early as middle school, they can use that to kind of plug in those interests and look at what career options are out there. Did you have any idea what you wanted to be when you grew up?
Well, it's funny you should ask. You know, I don't want to brag, but I did win the fire prevention poster contest when I was in kindergarten.
Oh, okay.
So I did fancy myself an artist for quite a while, but I did fall in love with writing and eventually thought I would be a journalist or an author. And I think, you know, all of those things add to the tapestry of kind of your career. And, you know, I've used certainly all of those skills through the years, but my path was a little different than I thought it was going to be at first.
Yeah. So another website, just to mention quickly, My Smart Borrowing. And again, all these resources will be in the caption and notes. But I think this is a good place for juniors and seniors who may not have started early on, might be a little bit kind of behind in a sense, who are trying to figure out how much schools are going to cost and what that cost is in relation to how much they might have to borrow, how much they're going to make when they graduate. And are they really going to be able to repay those loans and then sustain the lifestyle that they want after they graduate?
Right. And I think another tool, we're just putting the finishing touches on this. It's a high school curriculum that school counselors can actually use for their students in the classroom to go through the My Smart Borrowing and the Education Planner website to kind of get a little framing around what they want to do. So that curriculum will be available shortly, and some of those questions and the preparation will be answered with this curriculum. So we're going to have more to come on that very soon, and I would invite all of our listeners to stay tuned to our website. We're going to have it added to the toolkit that's already out there for school counselors.
Very nice.
Did you know the cost of attendance at a post-secondary school is more than tuition? There are fees, housing, and meals to consider, plus things like textbooks, school supplies, transportation, childcare. It all adds up. It's important to account for all of these things when figuring out what you'll have to owe. And remember, you have to pay for these costs every semester you're enrolled. So be sure to do the math. Post-secondary schools have collegiate basic needs resources on campus, such as food pantries and clothing cupboards, or even laptop lending libraries to help. As you advise learners, or if you're a learner yourself, know what you're going to owe, make a plan to pay, and know where to go for help. Check out PHEAA.org and KeystoneStudentLoans.org for more information. Plan ahead. You'll be glad you did. Welcome back. We talked about PHEAA a little bit. Let's talk a little bit more detail about some of the products and services we offer in addition to those websites that we mentioned. So we have a host of publications. Our listeners can go to PHEAA.org/order-online, and we'll have that link. But they can go on and you can see just there's a broad swath of things that can help you negotiate this college going process. And we also, though, offer presentations and workshops because we're not just a student lender.
That's right. So those resources that you mentioned, just for everybody out there, those are free. So go on, check them out. They're very beneficial. But yes, our team works with high school counselors to get them resources and information to share with students. But we can also host events. So PHEAA, our team, and the Access partners have hosted more than 1,000 financial aid nights, junior jumpstart nights, FAFSA completion events, and classroom presentations. So I know that there's a lot of resources out there in the border states, but you can never have too many. And as people deal with budget cuts, resources just might not be as good as they used to be.
Right.
So again, we've mentioned this before, but if you're a high school and you don't already work with us, please reach out and see how we can work together. We can be just one piece to the puzzle.
Right. So once students apply for financial aid and decide where they're going to go to school, sometimes the financial aid doesn't cover the balance. So let's talk about Keystone student loans and what's available in the border states. So we mentioned, I work in the 4 states kind of south and east of Pennsylvania, but we do have 2 other account executives that work in other states. So we are in Ohio, West Virginia, New York,
as well
as New Jersey, Delaware, Virginia, and Maryland. Did I get them all?
Yes, I think so.
Okay,
good.
Yep. So how can Keystone Loans fill the gap?
Yeah, so something that's interesting that our listeners may not be aware of is our loans are funded by public bonds. So that really allows us to offer a lower interest rate than a lot of other lenders that are out there. So one thing that's really important when you're looking at loans, especially for our first-time borrowers, is you're going to get a range. You have a low and you have a high. Some people get caught up on that low end, but a majority of people aren't getting approved for that. There will be cases, yes, but it's really important for people to also look at that high end. Right. You're going to see 17, 18% sometimes. Keystone, right now, we are just under, I think, 11%. But in addition to our competitive rates, we also offer different repayment terms. So the borrower can choose 5, 10, or 15 years. If they choose to do an immediate repayment, they can also get a lower interest rate for that as well. So a lot of different options. It's semi-customizable, and we have a lot of different interest rate and borrower benefits that we offer as well.
And that's very true. I actually have a friend who had took out a PA Forward loan, which is the sister product to Keystone, and they're at a 3% interest rate. They went into immediate repayment for principal and interest, so they got a lower rate. And it's just, it's a really good option if you can maybe afford something every month, but you can't afford like that lump sum at the same time. And we know schools have repayment plans or payment plans that you can break up payments over the course of maybe 10 months or something like that. But if you want a little bit more flexibility, this could be an option for that as well.
Yeah. And these can also help your credit as well.
Sure.
So, Kim, from your perspective, having worked in a financial aid office, how do you talk to students who do need to borrow about what tools to use and kind of how to find the right loan for them?
So I think if I had something on my wish list and I were talking to students who aren't yet in college, I would say prepare and have conversations with your family ahead of time. I think the gaps now are so large between what the charges are at the school, and then what financial aid covers. So if you haven't had a conversation with your family about what they can afford, sometimes you have a student in your office that's just kind of shell-shocked because they owe so much money and they thought their parents were going to pay it. They just didn't know. Mm-hmm. And so I think parents and students can really sit down and have conversations about, we want you to apply everywhere, but we don't know what your financial aid package is going to look like. So, if you get this, you can go to that school, but if this is really what we can afford, and so you might have to have some backup options. So I think that's really kind of those first conversations to have. And I think that, that might be a whole other podcast. Students are really watching their parents pay back student loans now. Yes. And so a lot of students are really adverse to borrowing at all. Mm. And so that's like another conversation too. But if they're in your office, I think just going through their financial aid, making sure that they do have all of the free money that they qualify for, their Pell Grants, if they qualify, their state grants, if they qualify for those, are their institutional dollars, merit money, grant money, and then making sure students, if they do have to borrow, encouraging them to borrow those staffer loans first. There's a subsidized portion sometimes and an unsubsidized portion, but I would encourage them to take at least the subsidy because they're not accruing interest while they're in school. So that's really important. And I think federal loans work with you a little bit more in repayment. There's might be some more flexibility to repayment. So I would encourage students to take those loans. But after that, if there's still a gap and alternative loans, that conversation kind of turns. I think there are some really great online tools. Elm Select and Fast Choice are websites that schools use. Schools might not use those. If they don't, they might have something on their website, maybe a little bit more robust than just, use whatever lender you want, but they might have some lenders. But I really encourage schools to think about having a preferred lender list with, 5, 6, 10 lenders, do a little bit of the upfront work, vet those lenders, make sure that they're offering low and good competitive rates, that the borrowing, the loan repayment looks good, that they're reputable companies and all of those things, that the rates don't go up to 20 or 25% maybe, that, you might as well just put it on your credit card at that point.
Oh, yeah.
So I think that that's really important. And if schools want to have a conversation about, how to do a preferred lender list, I think we're really happy to have that conversation too.
Absolutely. And I think it's important that the school's not putting the onus solely on the student to figure that stuff out, because again, this could be their first time borrowing any money. And it's really important that the school take the time to help educate them and make good financial decisions.
Absolutely.
But you also mentioned that, students and parents need to sit down together. And I completely agree that they need to have those conversations. And our team, just this past summer, put together a resource. It's a college in-school budget calculator. So it's available on our website, and it allows the student to do either a semester or a monthly budget. I believe those are the options. And I encourage people to sit down and do that as an exercise together. Do it over dinner one night. And really look at what are some of those expenses, because there's different tips and tools in there, but there's expenses that you just might not consider. So, and then Federal Student Aid also has a loan simulator that students and families can look at to kind of estimate what those student loan repayments are going to look like. If I borrow this much, here's kind of an estimate as to what those monthly payments are. And then you can kind of look ahead and can you afford the lifestyle that you're getting yourself into with the debt you have.
Yeah, I think that that's all terrific information, Amanda. I think all of these links, we need to compile our list and put them in the notes for sure for our listeners. We're really excited to bring this podcast to our listeners. And you can follow us on all of the socials at Keystone Student Loans and at PHEAA. We want, in the meantime, to talk about, we're getting ready to have another episode too. It's not going to be a one and done thing. And we're going to talk in April about National Financial Literacy Month. And we have somebody from Earn to Learn who's going to be on the podcast with me talking about financial wellness and alternative ways to pay for college besides loans. And so we're going to also introduce listeners to an organization called PHEAA, which is the Higher Education Financial Wellness Alliance. Okay. They have put together an organization of like campuses that have those financial wellness centers, all of those people that really help students not only with how to pay for college through financial aid, but also like what does life look like after you graduate and kind of that financial part, you know, saving for retirement and budgeting and all of the things that, you know, some of us wish that we would have learned a long time ago.
Earlier.
Right. So we're going to talk to them. And there's just so many resources. I'm so excited to get this going, and I think it's going to be really great. So now we would like to hear from our listeners. We do ask that you can provide feedback to us or ask your questions. If you have any questions about Financial Literacy Month or for our financial expert, we would love to hear them. And if you're a student, tell us how we can help you as well. So you can email us at keystonepodcast@PHEAA.org. That's PHEAA.org. And again, we'll have that in the notes as well. So as we conclude our inaugural lowKEY College Convo episode, I would like to invite our listeners to think about their own college journey and who helped you get through school. We talked, you know, a little bit about mentorship. Amanda, did you have mentors or people who helped you get through?
This is going to sound kind of cheesy, but, you know, I would say that my parents were really a mentor, especially after my freshman year. You know, I may not remember the conversations that happened before I left for school, but I certainly remember the ones that happened after my freshman year. And I think, you know, they sat me down, and it wasn't in a negative or disappointing way. It was this, you know, you made some mistakes, but we're going to rally behind you, and we're going to see how we can move forward. And throughout the rest of my college career, they were like there in my corner, kind of, you know, my cheerleaders at that point. So what about you?
So I think I mentioned I had a mentor that was really involved, and she was my work study supervisor. So I think, you know, she was amazing. And like I said, I still golf with her, and, she was just instrumental in all of the things. So I encourage our listeners, you know, if you had a mentor that helped you through, we'd love to hear your story as well. So if you want to share that with us, and that might be even something for a future episode, we can talk about all the great mentors that have really, and I've seen some of these community-based organizations, and there's just so many mentors in this field that help make a difference in so many students' lives. So if you have a mentor that helped you, you know, send them a text message, or better yet, give them a call and thank them for everything that they did for you. Amanda, thanks for having a lowKEY College Convo with me. I really appreciate you being here today.
Thank you. I'm honored to be your first guest, and I can't wait to see you travel across our states talking to professionals in our industry.
Thanks. And thank you for watching or listening wherever you get your podcasts. Tune in again for our next lowKEY College Convo, and we'll see you next time. Take care.